we've just been trying to practice day-to-day mindfulness, and we'll need to carry on doing that. Carry on reducing input, carry on, particularly I think, more and more importantly, working with technology. How do we use technology rather than have technology use us? If we don't use it, it definitely will use us. There's no other way now. No one out there is going to help you turn off. Nobody wants you to turn off. Yeah? No one wants you to limit your use. You've got a world out there that wants to get your attention and manipulate it, really, effectively, to get you to buy things, possibly jackets, get you to do all sorts of stuff, yeah? So how do we use technology rather than be used by it? Very easy to talk about, but actually ongoingly rather difficult to do. But the first sort of classic area of mindfulness that I want to really explore, in a way that's a kind of like a background thing that we need to be doing all the time so that we can start to practice mindfulness. And the first area, and the first vital area of mindfulness, is usually just translated as mindfulness of the body and its movements. Yeah, mindfulness of the body and its movements. And it's this that we're going to be focusing on this week: mindfulness of the body and its movements. And we're focusing on the mindfulness of the body and its movements so as to move towards this goal, this aim of living, of more life, Yeah. That's what we all want, really. If we get down to it, that's what we want, is more life. One of the main reasons we don't live more life is because we're lost in thought. Really, that's what it comes down to. All of us want more life. All of you could probably sit up here and give a talk about the value of more life. But probably the main reason we don't experience it is because we're lost in thought. We're planning, fantasizing, remembering, worrying, ruminating, etc. A lot of our life is spent doing that. What's even more interesting, I think, there's a sort of philosophy in this somewhere, is that we've extended that to the screen, haven't we? So we're lost in this world of, very often, in this world of pictures, fantasies, stories, justifications, scenarios, which we then literally play out in front of us. So our mind is like YouTube, really. I mean, I think YouTube is quite interesting. It fully replicates our mind. So what happens is we press a particular film on YouTube, we watch it. As soon as that film finishes, 8 other films pop up that are related to that film, which you then press one of them, and then that finishes, 8 other or however many it is, pop up. Yeah, that's exactly what our mind is like. We've managed with YouTube and so much of our technology to create a brain outside of our brain that continues the work of our mind, our brain. Yeah? So I want to explore this issue, which is, I think, absolutely crucial to this issue of living more life, which is crucial to this issue of mindfulness. So I've said that usually we're lost in thought, but you see, if you think of YouTube as being an example, I think that's a bit clearer, isn't it? Because it's not just thought, it's pictures, stories, scenarios. You know that time when you're unconsciously arguing with someone in your mind? Of course, I don't do this. You're cycling. Particularly, I find it when I'm cycling. I think it's because there's lots of difficult stimulation, and then you can easily get into. And then I go home, and he's going to say, "Ha ha, right." Well, if you were on time, but and you can do that. You can do their voices perfectly, can't you? You can do perfectly the voice. But what's weird about it is, you in your mind, you're saying, and I get to work, and they say you're late. You say, well, you were late yesterday. And in the start of the scenario, you think that's going to be your knockdown argument. But then they answer back, don't they, in your mind? they then say, well, actually, you end up having this argument where they actually answer back, don't they? It's not that you never seem to win, even in your mind. They say, well, actually, the other day, you think, well, excuse me, before you know, you've got this full-out argument. I mean, if we ever meet, Martians or something, it's going to be very difficult to explain it, isn't it? You're going to say, so you're having an argument, yeah, but they're not there, no. But you kind of get angry with them, yes. And they speak to you, yes. How do they do that? Well, you kind of do it. So you're speaking to yourself. No, but it feels like that. It's very difficult to explain. So what really we have is this, you need a Buddhist word for it. You've got this word prepunch. So it's a Sanskrit word. Prepunch. It means mental proliferation. It doesn't mean thought. It's very important to make this distinction because thought is a wonderful thing. Sometimes I have thoughts. Not as many as I'd like. Sometimes I do have thoughts. Do you have any of those? It's lovely when you have a thought. Really nice when you have a thought. It kind of lights things up a bit. I lead a study group on a Monday nights, and sometimes I have a thought. Usually to do with something else that somebody said, or have a thought, And it's lovely when you have a thought. By a thought I mean something that seems to, I think, take you deeper to something. A deeper perspective. You have a thought. So much of what we value in the world is because someone somewhere had a thought. We're talking about the invention of the internet. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, sitting in a corridor at CERN had a thought. And that means that we can now email each other and so on. So there's nothing wrong with thought. Thought is a wonderful thing. That's what philosophers do. They think. Great philosophers think greatly. It's just much more difficult to do than it sounds. Genuine thinking is much more connected to your body and your emotions than you realise. Genuine thinking is a bit more like sport, in my experience. When I have a thought, it's a bit sort of more like a sports person would have in their sport. An instinct which you've translated into a thought. Most genuine thoughts are actually instinct that you've translated somehow. Thought is a translation, is my general sense. Thought is often a translation from something not quite right. You keep going to that meeting, you think, what is it about this meeting? It doesn't kind of work. And you think about it, and then suddenly you think, and you do something and it changes. Lovely when that happens, yeah. So let's be clear that thought is a wonderful thing. Prepunch doesn't mean thought like that. It's usually translated as mental proliferation. You could translate it as surplus thought, but I don't think that's quite as good. It's mental proliferation. Another obvious translation for it would be rumination. Rumination is when you just keep going over things, going over that argument in your head, or keep going over. I mean, if you're prone to depression, one of the things that you'll do is you'll keep going over the causes and meanings of your unhappiness. Why am I unhappy? Is it because of that? Is it because of this? I was fine a minute ago. What's wrong with me now? Very common kind of prepunch, ruminative thought. A depressive rumination is sometimes called aberrant problem solving. You're trying to solve the problem of your unhappiness, but that trying to solve the problem of your unhappiness becomes the cause of your unhappiness. Yeah? Now this is like becoming a massive epidemic issue for us, fed and stimulated by the fact that we're always online. So we're having not only generating our own thoughts, prepunch, mental proliferation, but they're pouring into us from the screen. Opinions, views, attitudes, scare stories, rumours, gossip, all pouring into us from the screen as well. It's never been so easy to opinionate and to share your opinions amongst all your friends. I've got a little girl who's at school. She's only 10, two little girls. And, she's very, very nervous about how she's seen at school. Very soon, you'll be able to she'll be at senior school where you'll be able to post it online about what someone said. Terrible thought, that, if you mean. A little bit of gossip, pop it online now. So this issue of prepunch is absolutely central to mindfulness. It means, proliferating thought. It means that YouTube channel where... And what's important about propuncture is it's automatic. It's not your fault. It's sometimes described as being an automatic pilot. Yeah. So human beings have this incredible capacity to become automatic. If you couldn't do that, you couldn't survive in this world now. So you remember what it was like when you first learned to drive. You have to think about everything, don't you? Thinking itself is actually very narrow. You remember when you first did it. It's very, you have to do mirror, signal, manoeuvre. Do you remember when you ever did that with the steering wheel? Everyone goes like that now. But for a period before you take your test, you have to do that with the steering wheel. It all feels so clunky. Or if you try to learn to play the piano, try to get your fingers to do this. But then quite quickly your body automaticizes so that you can drive through traffic, whilst listening to the radio, talking to a friend, and you stop talking when you get to a difficult intersection because you need to use your thinking mind, but then you just go back onto automatic. So really important faculty that human beings have to live on automatic. So often, much of our life, you don't need to think about at all. You can drive all the way to work without thinking about it. A lot of our life is done on automatic. Nothing wrong with that, but it makes us very prey to certain things. So not only does your body become automatic, that thing like you can open a drawer with your foot and all that sort of thing, whilst reaching for a spoon, and you do all that sort of automatically and put your coat on whilst, we do all of those things happen automatically. But your mind also becomes automatic. So by that I mean it will tend to play the YouTube clips that you played before. So you literally have a playlist of favourites. The sort of things that you tend to think when you're not paying attention. So your mind, my mind, all of our minds, automatically habituate to particular things. If you're not putting it into something valuably and usefully, your mind will go back to its automatic setting. Now, for some people, that's just a happy inner burbling. I'm so marvellous, I'm too sexy for my shirt or my new jacket. A sort of happy inner burbling. For some people, it goes back to a habitualised, harsh inner criticism. If you tend to get low, one of your habitual settings will be to go through stories of harsh inner criticism. You might habitually compare yourself to people. You might habitually fantasize or plan. I've got a friend of mine who, when he's not attending, sort of start thinking, okay, so tomorrow I've got that meeting, so I could go to that really nice cafe on the way. If I leave 5 minutes early, that give me a bit more time so I can find it. He sort of plans the nicest way through life. Meanwhile, life is actually going by. So one of the things you're starting to try to learn with propuncture is what is your playlist of favourites? Because every time you press one in your mind, 8 more films will come up. And then if you're not attending, you'll tend to habitually just choose another one along the lines of your past. You'll tend to play the stories in your mind that you've tended to play. You'll also tend to play the stories in your mind that other people have played to you. So like in my family, I come from a very large family. I have 3 older brothers and a younger sister. And in my family, I was always the useless one. It's not actually completely unjust. All of my brothers, I come from a very sort of working class family, and my family are very, very capable. And I was always terribly dreamy. I'm a bit dreamy now. I've ended up writing poetry, so that really is a confession. So they always thought of me as the useless one who couldn't do things. And so that if I'm under stress now, or if I do get things wrong, that sort of story can come up again. I can't do things, I'm useless, I'm dreamy, I'm not practical, And then you start, once you play those stories, you make the world fit your stories. Are you following all this? Am I going too fast? As soon as you play that habitual automatic story, and remember it is automatic, you haven't woken up in the morning thinking, what shall I do? Shall I have a really great day? Or shall I play a really worrying story about being thwarted and overlooked? They come up automatically. They come up automatically when you're tired, when you're doing something where you don't need to think very much, like when you're washing up, when you're driving. If you've ever decorated a flat, your mind just doesn't need to do much, so it just goes straight back to your automatic settings, which basically means playing your playlist of favourites. I'm wonderful, I'm terrible, whatever it is that you tend to play. You always will, human beings will tend to gravitate to a playlist of favourites. And then that makes you see life through those stories. And what that does is it edits life to fit them. So, if you've grown up feeling that you're unlovable, for instance, you'll find evidence for that everywhere. And what you'll do is when your friends try to persuade you that you're not seeing things right, you'll find ways of disbelieving them or thinking that they're just being nice. You'll find a way of editing life to fit your stories. I mean, when you think about this, it's a very profound issue. It's not that we live life and then make stories from it, although there's an aspect of that. By the time you're all of our age, we're fitting our life, into our pre-existing automatic stories. So as soon as you think, oh no, that's happening again, that's you, not life. Because life never happens again, does it? Never happens again. So as soon as you say, I can't believe this is happening again, that's saying something about not life, but your stories that you tell about life, which is fitting life into your stories. Yeah. If we're not careful, our life is bounded by the stories we tell of it. And many people never escape that. Yeah. Of course, one way to try and escape that is to try and tell yourself to think about something else, or to tell yourself not to think, or to say to yourself, I shouldn't be thinking these stories. All that does is create another story about how you shouldn't be telling yourself stories. Yeah. You cannot think yourself out of thought. One of the things you really need to learn, I really need to learn, we all need to learn about mindfulness, is you cannot think yourself out of thought. You cannot say to you can say, stop thinking, but that's just more thought. You can say, I wish I wasn't thinking so much, but that just adds more thought to your thinking. You can say, I can't believe I'm doing that critical story again, but that's just you criticising yourself again. If you're not careful, you think, oh no, I'm criticising myself again, I really shouldn't do that. I can't believe I'm criticising myself. Oh, I'm doing it again. Oh no, I'm doing it even more. I'm still criticising. When am I? You can never get out of it. The stories we tell about the stories we tell, we get incredibly caught up in that. Yeah. The only thing you can do is notice yourself playing that YouTube channel of your mind, going through your playlist of favourites, and what's important to remember about this is you're doing it automatically, instinctively. You won't notice that you're doing it very often. What tends to happen is because the stories are very familiar to you, they don't show up very much, and because they're familiar to you, you take them as being true. Yeah. A lot I could say about this, but you see what I mean? They run along without you noticing. They tend to lie just below the level of consciousness. And because they're familiar to you, you both don't notice them and take them to be statements of fact. Yeah? So do you see that the first thing of mindfulness is noticing the prepuncture, the YouTube channel that you've logged onto. Yeah? Trying to notice that without telling yourself off, without thinking, I can't believe that you're thinking that, without whatever it is that you do, yeah? So noticing yourself, the kind of playlist you're running, stepping out of prepuncture into the direct sensations of your body, yeah? That's what you can do, and that will make a difference. You can never think yourself out of thought. It does not work. I've tried it. It doesn't work. Your instinct to solve the problem of your mind becomes a problem. Yeah? So what we need to train in, first of all, is noticing that playlist of favourites and even starting to get a sense of that's just the sort of thing I think. So for instance, if I get very tired, on Mondays and Fridays I fast, and if I'm tired on a Monday and Friday evening, my mind can get very critical. When I get tired, when I'm hungry, I've got a very, very critical kind of mind, and that instinct to be critical can get very, very strong and can attach itself to pretty much anything. And I sometimes say, no, you're on your fast day today and you're tired. You're not able to think about that subject just now. Yeah? So that's learning, no, this is just a story that you tell at this time. You don't need to take that very seriously. Really, it would be better to think of this YouTube channel of our mind like just having the radio on. It's not my mind, it's just the radio that's I've created by the thoughts, the stories I've told myself. And just if it was a radio being on, you don't need to take it terribly seriously. Whatever you're saying in your mind, you don't need to take it terribly seriously. It's weird that we so take our thoughts seriously, but it really is just the noise of your mind. What you need to do, what I need to do, is keep noticing the station that I habitually tune into, and you'll have a range depending on whether you're tired or not, depending whether you feel low or whether you feel happy. Sometimes when you're very happy, you can tune into this kind of I can do anything mode, where you get into that sort of fantasy I can do anything mode, and then you have a crash from that. Yeah. So you're trying to learn the propuncture of your mind, and you're trying to step out of that into direct experience of the body. Yeah. By direct experience of the body, I mean your direct sensual experience, not thinking about the body. You don't need to think about the body. You don't need to try to be very mindful of the body. You don't, for instance, need to walk slower. You don't need to slow down. You don't need to suddenly be very sort of weirdly mindful. I'm now really mindful. Look at me, so mindful. Think, why are you doing that weird thing? So as I talk to you now, I can start to feel my body sitting on this chair, and I can feel my toes are slightly curled up, and I can feel that I'm resting some of my weight on my hands, and I can feel even my lower back against the cushion of the chair. And I can do that without suddenly closing my eyes or anything like that. And as you listen to me, you can feel that you're sitting on the cushions. You can notice your hands, where your hands are, what your hands are doing. You don't need to stop listening to me, do you? You don't need to close your eyes. I can carry on talking to you and I can still feel the warmth of my hands. And actually when I do that, it does change something, doesn't it, in my speech. I do slightly slow down. The more I tune into my body, I feel slightly less drawn out to myself and concerned about how this is coming over, kind of a bit more settled in myself. And the more you do that as you listen to me now, feeling your feet on the floor and what your hands are touching and where your feet, the weight of your body on the cushion, slightly changes the atmosphere, doesn't it? Just slightly. And you don't need to change your posture or be mindful. You just direct your attention a bit more to your body, and that's what I'm doing now. And as soon as I do that, I notice I start to feel slightly more emotionally in touch with myself, which is slightly more uncomfortable. Makes me feel slightly more vulnerable to you, excuse me. But I feel more, a bit better. So that's me being mindful, and that's you being mindful. So I don't need to stop talking. I don't need to close my eyes. And you can try to carry on doing that as I'm talking, and I'll try and carry on doing that. So you're noticing the weight of your body on the cushion. You're noticing your back a bit, your lower back. So that's what we're practicing, is turning our attention like that to our body. So I'm not thinking now about my feet because I'm talking, but I can feel the warmth of my feet. I'm not thinking about my back, but I can feel it, yeah? So that's all you need to do, is you notice your mind, and you step out of that. Even that is just a metaphor. You just notice your body instead. So you notice just now that warmth under your backside as you're sitting on the chair. it slightly changes something. Nothing very dramatic, but it does slightly change something, doesn't it? So that's what I want us to practice this week and carry on practicing it now. So feel your hands now again. So what I want you to do is notice is that when you start to do that, because I'm feeling my hands a bit more now, my hands are not a thought. I'm pressing slightly on my hands. But that pressing is not a thought, that's just a word. So if I tune into it a bit more, it takes me away from that prepunch, yeah? Your body is not a thought. So every time you notice your body, you get a bit more space on your mind. And even as I talk now, I feel a bit more space. And probably you feel a little bit more space. So I want us to practice this week. And I could say, okay, well, you're doing it now, hopefully. Remember where your feet are. You don't need to remember them, you just need to feel them directly. Comfortable or uncomfortable, you don't need to think about them at all. But you couldn't do that all the time, it would be too much to ask. So what I'm going to ask you to do in a minute, I've lost track of time, is come up with a walk every day that you practice this. Yeah? But before I do that, I want to see if there's any questions about what I've said about prepuncture. This is like such an important area. Stories we tell in our mind, this YouTube channel of our mind. We can't think our way out of thought. What we need to do is tune into body sensations, and that gives us more space to think. Is there anything you need to ask about that before I say a bit more?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I was thinking, at the moment we're sort of wasting our lives with all these thoughts.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't we be doing that anyway, but instead of with thoughts, with feelings about our bodies?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Probably, yeah. Let me think. Well, what feeling your body does, and I feel it slightly doing it now, is that it deepens your thought. It gives you a bit more space from your thought, and it means that your experience is more unified, so that there's more of you here. As soon as you tune into your body, there's more of you present. And that means that your mind becomes more workable because you've got more space from it. But what we're first of all trying to do is gather ourselves so that we can see deeper into life, so that we can have more life. If you remember, we're trying to aim for more life. If what we're doing primarily is being lost in the YouTube channel of our mind, that's less life. Definitely less life, isn't it? Now, we're not just trying to feel the body as an end in itself, although it's a really, really important place to start. We want to be we're living much of our life, we want to live a lot of life through our body. At the moment what's happening is our head is turned right up and has become more and more noisy, and our body and our emotions are turned right down, particularly the body, I think, actually. So what we're trying to do at the moment is turn the body up more, so that we've got a more unified and more sensual life. And that has a deepening effect on your life. In a way, it's not a theory, it's something you need to try. Yeah? I might think more about that question and come back to it next week, but that's as far as I can get with it just now. Yeah.
What if the thoughts are sort of completely overwhelming?
Yes, that's right. I mean, sometimes they really are, aren't they? I mean, I've been on this retreat for a month, and I got, my meditation was going well on the retreat, and it becomes very natural to go deeper in meditation on retreat. Coming back, my mind has just been overwhelmed with thought, all these emails coming, all this stuff I need to do, now I'm back. Sometimes it really feels like an avalanche, doesn't it? So one of the things I've been doing is tuning into how that feels in my body. What it creates is this sort of buzzy sense. It's like your whole body is electrified a bit. It includes your head, but also your whole body if you tune into it. It's really quite unpleasant, but it feels literally like there's too much electricity going through your body, too much thought pouring through your body. If you can tune into that effect it has on your body, that's starting to step you out of it. But as soon as its thought is pouring into like you do like that, you need to think, okay, well, working with this is different from working at not very much thought. So you need to keep changing your attitude to what you're trying to do, depending on how much thought you've got. Sometimes it does feel like you're just drowning in thought, doesn't it? Like you're standing under this great big waterfall of thought, and it just doesn't feel like you can do much about it. Sometimes with things like that, actually the best thing to do is go swimming, submerge yourself in water. Go to go to the gym, go running, literally run it off. It's like you've got surplus energy. But what I've been doing more recently is tuning into this body sense of the body slightly buzzing with thought, and that gradually, it's quite unpleasant, but gradually quietens the mind down. The other thing you can always do is soften your face and your shoulders. As soon as you get that thinking thing, your face, scrunches up, your shoulders hunch, your belly sucks in. So you can immediately sort of start to change all that. But sometimes thought is positively painful, isn't it? It's not thought, is it? It's prepunction. It's terribly it's hankering, driven, unaware. That's often the characteristics of prepuncture, is hankering, driven, and unaware. That's what we're trying to deal with, is that hankering, driven, unaware, prepunctic thinking. Yeah.
If you focus on the body and you have pain,
Yeah.
aches, that would perhaps be a positive sign to go and get it checked. But
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
wondering, that could be a focus that takes away from just relaxing the body. I just wondering,
Yes, that's good. Very good.
how do people deal with that?
Very, very good question. I think actually one of the reasons we ruminate so much, fantasize, get into prepuncture so much, is because the body is uncomfortable. So we try to get away from the body into this YouTube channel of our mind. I think sometimes that's one of the reasons why we watch DVDs so much and spend so much time looking at videos of people's cats. Extremely popular on YouTube. The body's uncomfortable. Actually, one of the things we need to learn is to treat discomfort in the body as if it was comfort. As soon as you have discomfort in the body, it sets off a kind of alarm that says there's something wrong. And as soon as you have that alarm going off, you tense around it, which makes it worse. So actually, you need to treat discomfort in your body as if it was comfort. So go actually towards it, relax into it. I have quite a lot of discomfort for various reasons, in meditation and out. And, I don't like it, physical, even pain. As soon as I react to it, it gets worse. As soon as you react to it, feel averse to it in your mind, you tighten in your body and you tighten your mind. So one of the arts of this, stepping out of prepunction into your body, is also the courage to feel discomfort in your body without getting into rumination about that, without getting into stories about that, oh my God, it's got worse, it's going to get worse, this is really unpleasant. That just makes it, all of that just makes it worse. So actually there needs to be a kind of courage. And actually my experience is at times, particularly on this retreat, I was having these meditations where I had a lot of, actually, pretty much pain, or at least quite a lot of discomfort. And I could get to the point where it was there, but it just didn't bother me anymore. I wasn't feeding it with, oh no, oh crikey, oh it's very sore, oh I wish it wasn't there, I wish it would go away, what should I do? I wasn't doing that at all in some meditations, and I sort of freed myself from it. It's really lovely, actually. And then you can't really say what it is anymore. But and that's a bit deeper, but the first thing is to treat discomfort as if it was comfort. Because then you're telling your brain it's not a threat. That the problem with pain is the threat, the feeling of threat. That's what makes it problematic. If you could find a way around the threat, it's not so problematic. So yes, it's a good corollary to this. Yeah.
You said you cannot think yourself out of thought. And I was thinking about your reference to a playlist, which, if I understood you correctly, is often a kind of script which isn't very helpful.
No, that's right, yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking, what if you just, as it were, change the playlist, like you change a song, you don't like
Yeah.
it, and reframe what might have been a badness.
Yeah, I mean that in a way it's a sort of rather too large area to go into, but you can reframe things, and one of the things of mindfulness is trying to quite consciously find ways of reframing things. If you tend to be rather pessimistic, for instance, consciously looking for, I can't remember whether you do it in this course, I think we do, I mix my two courses up together, but consciously looking for things that don't agree with your story. If a pessimistic mindset will tend to look for evidence for itself, you consciously try and look for evidence that disagrees with that. So yes, that's another way of doing it as well. At the moment I want to keep it simpler than that, but you're quite right, yeah, you can. So let me just say something about your home practice, because I don't want to take up any more time, but as we go on, I'll try and keep my presentations a bit shorter so you can ask questions, because it's good to hear some questions. So what I want you to do is, every day I want you to do a mindful walk. In a moment I'll get you to talk to a partner about how you're going to do this. It needs to be more than 5 minutes long. It needs to be less than 20 minutes long. An ideal might be the walk you do to your tube station in the morning. The walk, I don't know, if you cycle, the first 15 minutes of your cycle ride. The important thing about this walk, it needs to be a very clear start. Does it start when? When you close the door of your flat? Does it start when you get outside? When does it finish? Does it finish when you're sitting on the tube? Does it finish when you swipe your Oyster card? When does your walking meditation start? When does it end? Be really clear about that. It needs to be a walk that you do every day, or at least it might be that you have a weekday walk and a weekend walk. But if at all possible, not a walk that you have to put into your life. I don't want to give you goodly things to do. I want to try to help us become mindful in the life we actually have, not a fantasy life. So what is something you do every day that you could turn into your time where you're going to practice, noticing your mind going off into prepunch, getting a bit of a sense of what playlist you're on, how familiar is that to you? Is that the sort of thing you tend to think? And then stepping back into the body sensation. And you're going to practice that for 15 minutes, let's say, every day on this particular walk you do. If you don't go a walk, you need to find some place in which you're moving around for about that length of time, where that becomes each day where you practice noticing prepunch, noticing your mind in your YouTube playlist, stepping out of that into your body. So it needs to be doable, it needs to be something you're doing every day, it needs to be something that you can then come back next week and say whether you've done it or not. So in the book, as far as I remember, I haven't looked at it for a long time, is you can write down each day whether you've done it, write down about how it went and so on. Yeah. So this is your home practice for this week. Keep trying to simplify your life, reduce input. Keep looking out for these issues of day-to-day mindfulness, and add to that a daily mindful walk. Yeah. So what I'd like you to do now is just go into pairs or threes, whatever works from the room, and just try to together work out what your mindful walk is going to be, or your mindful cycle, or whatever it is. What are the issues of that? It's particularly like, have you got no routine in your life? Do you work from home? Are you going to Zanzibar tomorrow? What do you meet? Do you never walk on your own? What are the issues, and how are you going to work with those issues so that next week you can come back and talk about how you got on with this mindful walk?